What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, later on today, we actually have a bit of a surprise from Nintendo, a double direct. This was kind of weird, and we're going to talk about why this could actually, yes, lead into discussions online around their next system. Go figure. Also, we're going to be talking about Sony and their own event that seems like it's shaping up for September, but is it that big showcase everyone's looking for? And then we'll also be talking about Metal Gear Solid Delta, because previews went live yesterday, and guys, this might actually be that remake that people have been really excited to finally get. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps it a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're going to start today with Star Wars Outlaws, which did have its reviews go live yesterday with the embargo lifting. And we can see over on Metacritic currently sitting at a score of 77. Now, this is on 62 critic reviews, and there are also many videos and discussions that went up yesterday. I believe RGT had an entire video on it. I played about the first hour or so because I'm very much immersed right now in Black Myth Wukong, and I'm at the end of Chapter 5, so I'm getting close to the end of the game, but it's a game I don't necessarily want to step away from for too long because I cannot forget how to play that game, you know, where you kind of fall out of a game and you're like, oh, what were the buttons again? Don't want to do it, just want to get to the end of the game before I move on to something else. So I did put up an hour of gameplay just so people could see what exactly it plays like in the beginning, and I had some issues already. So based on some of the reviews now, it does appear the game tries to do a lot as a big open world Star Wars games, but doesn't necessarily excel in any one category. So yes, I would double check some of the reviews before you jump into this latest Ubisoft game. Also, it looks like there was a lot of interest at Gamescom, specifically in the handheld sector. This we can see was posted up by Tom Henderson, saying almost everyone at Gamescom gave interesting hardware discussions about handhelds. My hunch is that you should save your money a little longer if you're planning to buy one. Seems like a lot more options and improvements are coming soon. Now, he's not exactly sure on the timeline, sure, but yeah, I think right now with where we are after seeing the Steam Deck OLED and the ROG Ally, that had a revision, of course, to Ally X, I do think we're sort of in that midway point, and in the next year or two, we'll see a new Steam Deck that AMD is working currently to create a new chip, a successor to that Z1 Extreme. And I think you'll also see Sony throw their hat in the ring and Microsoft. So here soon, it's actually going to get pretty crowded in the handheld space. And that's actually very exciting because it seems like we'd have a lot of competition from the technology side, but also maybe from the game side, because we see a lot of things becoming Steam Deck verified specifically so that they can then sell to the Steam Deck audience. So seems like there is a lot of interest there from the consumer side to the where developers and publishers are taking notice. So I like the idea of us kind of, while handhelds sort of went away for a bit there, obviously with Sony getting away from the Vita and really just Nintendo kind of leading the way, maybe we'll come back around here to where there is a ton of interest as technology continues to evolve with these mobile chips. Oh, and I just mentioned Black Myth Wukong. Well, there are people who are wondering if it's ever going to come out on the Xbox, because there's been a lot of confusing statements around this. Well, we may have got a bit more of a clear-cut answer as to what's going on here. We can see this is over on the Gaming Leaks subreddit, and they're actually quoting Extus with the translation saying that the game apparently is suffering from a bug known as memory leak, which can cause significant crashes that would compromise the performance of your Xbox console. Because of this issue, the game has not passed Xbox's bug detection tests, and says currently they're working hard to resolve the issue and achieve the necessary certification. My thing, though, is I think a lot of people are obviously looking at the Series S as something that's probably very difficult for them to figure out, considering the PlayStation 5 does struggle with this game. But I feel like this is a game that Microsoft should be prioritizing and working with game science to get it through certification, because this is a massive, massive release for a title like this. 10 million copies in 3 years. You definitely want to have it available on your console ASAP. So if anything, Microsoft, you might want to go ahead and get with game science there to figure this one out. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with what I can only really look at as a strange move at first when it was announced, but also it does kind of make sense based on some of the rumors and reports that were going around about Nintendo moving some of their presentations up into August. And it sounded weird at the time because it was like, well, there's one more week left in August. What are they going to have? Some big direct? Well, no, they're actually going to have a 2-part direct, as they did put this up over on their official account, where they say, join us tomorrow, August 27th, 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, for an Indie World showcase followed by a Nintendo Direct partner showcase. The live stream featuring both presentations back to back will be roughly 40 minutes in total. So, I mean, it could be a 20-minute and a 20-minute, could be a 15-minute and a 25. It's really hard to tell the split. Just know it's a 40-minute block that will start at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. Hard to exactly say what will be here, but Nintendo did follow up with the reply we were expecting. Please note there will be no mention of the Nintendo Switch successor during either of these presentations. Now, there was one interesting thing that did happen yesterday as this news was flowing. As it appeared, this over on My Nintendo News, the official Call of Duty Brazil X account has started following a range of Nintendo influencers from the country and even replied with eye emojis on posts mentioning the Nintendo Partner Direct. Now, they have since deleted those messages that they posted up over on Twitter X with the little eye emojis. Still, though, makes you wonder, okay, hold on a minute. Partner Direct, could there be something Call of Duty related at this show? And, I mean, it's possible. It's not going to be Black Ops 6. I don't think the development time would have lined up with everything that was going on with the FTC case, and then finally getting a hold of Activision Blizzard to then greenlight the development, and it's ready, like a year later or something? No, probably not. But we have had rumors go around for years now that like one of the Call of Duty Modern Warfare, like the campaign or the multiplayer there, would have made its way over to the Switch. And it wouldn't shock me if once Microsoft came in with Activision Blizzard, like, okay, what do we have Call of Duty that we can move over to the Switch? And that was one of them. I also wondered if maybe Call of Duty Mobile had been at least thought of and prototyped at one point in time, and then it got greenlit a little while ago, and it's now moving over to the Switch. Something just to get Call of Duty on the platform, I feel like would be good just to even test the audience to see if they would be interested, as Microsoft has signed that deal for 10 years with Nintendo that most likely will be starting next year with Nintendo's newest platform, which of course has now been thrust immediately into the spotlight after seeing this announcement, because Nintendo with a 2-part direct, when do you ever see that? Oh, we're going to take an Indie World and a partner showcase and just jam them together for some reason at the end of August, not even in September, which we had the reports that, oh yeah, they're moving up their presentations into August to make room for something. And you're like, okay, what would they be making room for? Well, obviously, it would probably be something with their next-gen console. They did reply with their message that it won't be here, but that doesn't mean it now couldn't show up in September or October, since, well, with a partner direct and an Indie World Showcase and all the other games they already have lined up for the rest of this year and technically the start of 2025, they're pretty much set. It seems like things are opened up now for them to start talking about next generation, especially if it is backwards compatible like we all assume. They're going to have no problem still selling software. Sure, hardware probably take a hit, but it's already on a steep decline right now. If you look at any of the sales reports, whether it's like the MPD Circana or anything coming out of Europe, really just now in Japan is where it's at least holding steady, but even that is starting to dip a bit. So might be about time for Nintendo to start talking about that. But for now, we have a couple of directs to take a look at today, and here's hoping we see something really cool, like maybe a Call of Duty to close out that partner showcase. Oh, and why not? I'll throw this out there. Let's get Hollow Knight Silksong somewhere. You know what? I mean, it's the Indie World, and then it's a partner showcase. You could technically have Hollow Knight Silksong bridge the gap between the two. Like, it could technically be in both shows at that point, but yeah, sure, why not? Hollow Knight Silksong, let's just get that announced by now so that we can all kind of move on from it, because every time an event is announced, everyone goes, is it Hollow Knight Silksong's time? And then when it's not there, everyone's just disappointed. Next up, let's talk about Sony and apparently their own show that should be shaping up for September. I say should because most of us assume they're going to do something ahead of Tokyo Game Show, much like Nintendo is doing their direct here with the partner and the Indie World. Maybe something else, we'll see. But a state of play, a showcase, is that something that Sony would have ready to roll ahead of Tokyo Game Show? Well, we can see this is actually posted up over on Insider Gaming. And this is actually citing Jeff Grubb over on Giant Bomb. This is during his podcast, his Game Morning Mess podcast, has claimed that a PlayStation State of Play will likely be released by the end of September. says, quote, there is probably going to be a PlayStation State of Play by the end of September. And this made the rounds quickly online because, of course, people are, with PlayStation specifically, people are very, they're kind of on edge. They're kind of antsy about what's happening right now with Concord, obviously. Astrobot right around the corner. Looks awesome still based on some of the things we've seen through leaks that I haven't really got into here yet because I'll admit I looked at them, I said, that would have been fun to at least discover on my own. But after that, it's like, well, what are we looking at? We need Sony to come out and start talking about some games to look forward to for the second half of the PlayStation 5's life, as well as this apparent PlayStation 5 Pro that is just floating around out there. And we can see, according to Insider Gaming, they say, according to their developer and manufacturer sources, the PlayStation 5 Pro still on track to release around mid-November. Well, that is 2.5 months from now, so they might want to start talking about that system, and it seems like, yes, a state of play, followed up with a PlayStation blog post to discuss this a bit more with the specs or any extra details with pricing and stuff. That would make sense, but I am a little surprised that we're hearing about a state of play as opposed to a showcase. It's been a while since we've had a showcase of any significant value, I should say, and it feels like at this time, with how long it's been for many of Sony's own first-party studios to release something that's not a remake or a remaster, like, it feels like it's been so long that many of them should be ready to go right now to at least showcase something that's coming in the next year or two. And I guess you could still do that in a state of play. Maybe showcases are just going to be held back for when it's time to talk about a brand new generation or a new piece of hardware, a new initiative. It seems like showcases for a while where just all the first parties come together and start talking about games, but they don't really do that as much anymore. So maybe the state of play is what we'd look towards, even to see 2 or 3 new first-party games. And that's my hope, is that they have something like that ready to go, because otherwise, what do you announce the PlayStation 5 Pro with? Maybe just a bunch of games we already have? Maybe Black Myth Wukong? Hard to say, but at least ahead of Tokyo Game Show, they would want to have something like a state of play to mix in different third-party games that I'm sure would like to be shown off a bit more at that event later on in September. So I guess we'll keep an eye out for Sony, as at times they like to announce state of plays, really we've seen a week in advance, so that could be happening at any point as soon as we get into September. Next up, let's talk about Metal Gear Solid Delta, as previews for this thing went live, and I saw it happened at like 3 a.m. or something, so it didn't necessarily go under the radar, but a lot of people waking up, of course, saw the direct news and stuff, the Outlaws reviews that went live, and this was missed a bit, and I wanted to double back to it because it looks awesome. Like, this looks exactly like what I would want to see from a modern day remake where people aren't frustrated at the idea of modernizing something. So let's take a look. We can see some of the trailer here for the game as I go over some of the highlights from the previews. And I noticed that VGC, GameSpot, even PlayStation Blog had an entire write-up for this with different angles and views around this thing. But starting at the top, outlets did play what appeared to be a prologue mission just to try out the game, of course, see some of the new features, but every one of them said it's a very faithful remake, almost like they just took the game itself that's already out there, as you would expect, and kind of built on top of it. So the controls have been updated. This includes using the D-pad for swapping camo easily or quick access to your codec context. They did play around with the UI elements like of course, health, stamina, your camo index to show how well hidden you are. Those have been relocated on screen, actually even moved to the bottom, it seems like, and maybe that's just as they were playing the game and trying to figure out how it would look with modern day visuals. Maybe they realized those were sort of getting in the way, moving it to the bottom kind of frees up the entire screen itself. There is a tooltip system. Now, what this appears to mean is when you grab an enemy, controls and options, so what you can then do with that enemy, knock them out, like basically just slit their throat, whatever, you can have options that show you what button to press to do that. So you don't have to then look at your manual, I guess. It's all there. It makes it a lot easier. Now, here's the good news. Quality mode, yes. So 4K 30, also a performance mode. They say targeting 1080p at 60 frames per second. Those will both be available at launch. And as we've seen really since that initial trailer to announce it, it's graphically impressive. And every one of these previews harped on that multiple times, just how blown away they were by the way this game looked, with the dense jungles, the character models, everything. So that's what I like to hear, because that was something that I was always impressed with back in the day on the PS2. It was visually impressive, and it ran, specifically Metal Gear Solid 2, really, it ran at a higher frame rate on that hardware, but Metal Gear Solid 3 was still blew me away with some of the things it did. And get this. So VGC was talking with the different developers there who are working on the game and some of the producers, and they asked them about, hey, could we do this for maybe some of the other Metal Gear games? Like Metal Gear Solid 1, like the first one, could definitely use a treatment like this. They said, if there is a high demand for them, let us know if you want to see these games on modern hardware. But right now, we're doing things little by little. Yes, we would like to see more Metal Gear Solid, Konami. I don't know why this is so weird. I'm sure they already have plans for some of these things, specifically Metal Gear Solid 4, which does need at the bare minimum a remaster to get off of that PlayStation 3 console. Hard to believe that's still stuck on that system, but it is. So here's hoping they have a solve for that one here pretty soon. But we are also waiting for a release date here, and maybe we would see it at this fabled State of Play, or maybe Konami just rolls into Tokyo Game Show, puts out some press releases, and makes the announcement on the grand stage there. Either way, I'm expecting this one now in 2025 because we're about to be in September. They have Silent Hill coming up, and I feel like Konami is looking at this like, okay, we don't need to necessarily rush this thing. Let's give it a bit more time and get it out in the first half, I should say, of 2025. And based on what I'm seeing here and the effort they're putting in, yeah, take your time. I would rather Metal Gear Solid 3 be done right, especially from what we've seen from recent releases where remakes are kind of messed up or other things. Let's take the time for a classic game like this and get it right on day one. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about something that did go under the radar quite a bit actually from Sony, and that has to do with them launching their own blockchain, which for a while, though that lingo went away. Remember, every game company, or just company in general, wanted to talk about NFTs and blockchain and having these things released into a marketplace and tying gaming assets to them and stuff, just because I'm sure it sounded good to investors. But that sort of went away with like all the crypto crash, all those other things that were happening out there. NFTs almost like going to zero. But it appears Sony is at least eyeing up some other aspects to blockchain that they would find more valuable even with maybe the music industry. We can see this posted up over on Insider Gaming. They say Sony has just revealed the development of Soneium? I assume that's what it's called because it's a layer 2 on Ethereum, so they look at that and go, okay, we'll do Soneium instead of Ethereum. An all-new blockchain that aims to create a world where Web3 use cases are a part of daily life. It's not yet open to the public, but the plan is to flesh out an ecosystem that'll one day facilitate Web3 game creation, interactions with NFT marketplaces, and entertainment-related services. So I think the idea here is more or less just to be ready just in case. Like, I kind of see this as contingency plan. It's going to a test net. They're playing around with it. It's not necessarily, hey, we're going to attach this to all of our games, NFTs everywhere, everyone celebrate. Nothing like that. But I'm thinking in their minds, look, they run movies, they run music, that sort of thing. Let's say we get to a point where you can do copywriting around these different properties on the blockchain. Well, Sony could potentially be the company that's there with the blockchain that you do that on, and that being Soneium. So that's kind of where I think it ends for now. We'll see if we have any more information get out there, especially as I'm sure investors will be very curious about what their plans are here, but that's sort of what I'm viewing it as now. I guess for gaming, one of the big advantages you could see is that your digital games could actually become unique and you'd be able to trade them in, or maybe send them to a friend or something all through just the digital side of things and not necessarily be stuck with something that's just tied to an account that can go away at any time if Sony deems it so. That's probably the biggest thing I could see that we as consumers would benefit from this, at least for now. Again, not sure what the future necessarily holds, but for now, I think this is them just kind of playing around with the idea and just being prepared. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, does the Combo Direct airing tomorrow make you think Nintendo is moving to unveil their next-gen system before the end of 2024? 59% say no, 41% say yes. So I did see a lot of people start to speculate a bit. Okay, this is very strange for them to go this route. Like, it does feel like they were going to have maybe an Indie World here and then this partner showcase the following month. They're pushing them all together to get it done now to make room for something later. And it does feel that way, and I do think they're revealing their next-gen system. Probably, I want to say it's in September, but it wouldn't shock me if it was in October. They already told us it's before the end of this fiscal year, and I don't think they're going to wait till March to show it. So I think we're going to see it before the end of this year. And I feel like anyone saying September, October, safe bet, easy guess really at that point. But who knows? Nintendo, they do some weird things as we are seeing right now in real time. So they could just randomly drop it one night on Twitter and just blow everyone away. And we'll finish up with the comments of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Brad, who says, now would be the perfect time for an out of left field Nintendo announcement like the N64 Mini. You remember when that was going around like crazy? That was a big rumor. Nintendo, they did the NES Classic, the SNES Classic, the N64 is the next logical step, and then nothing happened. Like, that was it. I mean, they put N64, I know, on NSO, but people were looking for that little mini N64 system and new controllers you could buy from them. Again, technically did that with NSO, but it is funny that they never tried like a Game Boy Classic. I think that would have been really cool to see, but still, that would have been that left field announcement that you're mentioning here. And I think they pretty much have had their fill of these classic systems, and they're now focused on things like their subscription service, which seems to be something they continue to build over time here, even having their expansion pack tier that adds in DLC, and then also doing things like this museum, the movies, the theme parks. They're figuring out ways to grow, and while the classic systems were fun, I don't think it was anything more than just that, a way for them to advertise their brand and remind really older people that they still exist. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll have it here next to me in a card, or maybe you did want to see the first hour or so of gameplay for Star Wars Outlaws, I'll have that right above it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.